What we do here is go back.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bare Knuckles Most Wanted. We are live here. Of course, I'm Matthew Kohler. You have Matt Seibel, my partner in crime, and we are joined tonight by Mr. Worldwide, Jeff Houston. How you doing tonight, Jeff?
Oh, I really wish you wouldn't have to ask me that question, but you know what? Since you did, I'm here.
Well, listen, I'm doing great just because you're here. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but I'm super excited to have you on here. And tonight we are going to be talking about BKFC 21, doing a little recap. And listen, it was a crazy night of fights. It definitely was one of the most exciting events that I've seen at BKFC. With not a single fight went the distance. I don't even think anything went past the second round. So, Jeff, what are your thoughts?
We've only seen this once in BKFC history, to where we had an entire event where there were no decisions, and it's exciting. Even though that there were a few instances I would have liked to have seen a 5-round bloodbath war. We didn't get it, unfortunately, but what we did get is a lot of knockouts, a lot of stoppages, every single one of them. It was, I couldn't have asked for a more brutal welcome to the state of Nebraska than what we gave Omaha the other day at BKFC 21. It was brutality at its finest.
It really was. It really was super, super, super exciting, and the place was packed, and the crowd, the energy in the crowd was amazing, and I've been to a number of combat sports events, and I think that a big piece of that energy that we feel from the crowd comes directly from the way that you hype it up. I mean, you're so stinking good at that. It's just a gift, man, that you have. And, there's nobody in the game better than you. So, that's one of my takeaways too, because I was really paying attention to what you were doing. I'm like, man, this guy, where does that come from? Is that just a natural God-given ability? I mean, obviously you have a ton of experience, but at what point did you realize that, like, dude, I'm pretty stinking good at this,
Probably the day, it's a tough one. The way that I look at it is my horns are the only thing holding up my halo.
Okay. That's fair.
That could come from above and below, for all I know. I mean, there could be a little bit of heaven, there could be a little bit of hell in what I do. I mean, you can't have one without the other. So, I mean, with all the good that I do, there's a little bit of evil that's kind of thrown in there for the showmanship. And I think that, there's a lot of ring announcers out there who can probably put their finger on where it comes from. I don't think that I'm one of them. I think I may be the exception to the rule, because I have no idea where it comes from. This invention that has become Mr. Live Worldwide came from nothing, came from absolutely nothing. I mean, and that's the damnedest thing. So when you come from nothing, as far as building a character and building eventually who you were born to be, it's kind of hard to actually pinpoint what did it? It just happened. It was always there. I guess it was maybe dormant and just came out and decided to play one day.
Well, I'm glad that it did, because again, that event and every event that you're a part of, I mean, it just you take it to a new level. And so I've always appreciated it, but I think after this last event on Friday in Omaha, I was just like, it just kind of hit me. I'm like, man, that's a huge part of what makes these events so exciting. So just wanted to, not trying to stroke you too much, but just wanted to tell you that I appreciate it, and it really kind of hit me like a ton of bricks at the event. So it's definitely one of the things that stood out in my mind overall. I mean, even maybe more so than some of the fights. So there you go.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to ever hear that. I don't ever want to hear that what I did was just as impactful or more impactful than the fights. A ring announcer never wants to hear that. We are just a spoke on the wheel. We are not the whole damn wheel. I mean, I add my sizzle. I'm not stupid. I know that I add my sizzle, but I also know that it's kind of weird because even though that maybe you're in the spotlight for a minute, geographically, I always feel that I have a tan of an edge of a circle, like that comes right down my face. And that's where I'm kind of supposed to be. It's in between obscurity and in between the spotlight. So I tell people, I've been asked before because, I have a couple of tattoos. What's your favorite tattoo? I said, oh, that would be the tattoo of the spotlight across my face, because that's where I live. I live in between obscurity and in between the spotlight, but I'm never 100% in the spotlight, because I learned at the beginning that's not where the ring announcer belongs. We've never belonged in the spotlight. The only person that should be paying to see the ring announcer live and doing his thing is the ring announcer's mother.
Well, there you go. There you go. Well, and again, that's not to take anything away from the fighters. What I'm saying is that the fights are amazing, but the way that you get the crowd hype and the energy from the beginning is awesome. So moving on, let's talk about the fights. So like we said, there was a ton of really exciting knockouts. It started from the very beginning with Jeff Souter and Adam Valcourt. Ended 49 seconds into round number 2. So what a way to start off the night, right?
Jeff Souter's a badass. Jeff Souter came in with a lot of fans. Both of them bare knuckle debuts. Both of them Omaha guys. So both of them getting a nice little pop at the beginning of the show. And I always like an opportunity when we're in a brand new state and our first fight ever. Think about how impactful that is to the state of Nebraska, but not only that, to the city of Omaha. That the first bare knuckle fight in Nebraska state history consisted of 2 Omaha guys. That's cool.
Yeah. No, it's great, and it was exciting to watch too. So, then of course the next one ended super quickly, 38 seconds into round number 1 with Carlos Trinidad Snake defeating Noah Cutter, and
that was a surprise.
It was a surprise. I didn't expect that to happen.
I didn't know where Carlos Trinidad Snake was coming from as a bare knuckle fighter. And I know that Noah Cutter has already had his battles inside the squared circle. And we all remember that horrific nose injury that he sustained, where his nose was almost literally flapped over. But it was of no consequence to him, which makes him the badass that he is. But the way that he got that quick flurry over on Noah was just I was just like, wow, nobody here saw that coming, even though, of course, Carlos is another Oklahoma guy.
Yeah. I mean, and that was something that was really cool for me. There were so many local fighters on this card, and like, how cool is that for the city of Omaha, and the surrounding areas? All those people, they get to see a lot of their hometown guys come in, first in history in the making, and the whole thing was just. I thought that was a brilliant move going into a new city by the BKFC, David Feldman and Nate Shook. Just absolutely there would not have been a better way to do that, in my opinion.
There isn't a better way to start off in a brand new market unless
Right.
the card is saturated with local talent. I mean, it has to be, because you have to give them that little extra incentive to come. Because if you break ground on a brand new state with nothing but, celebrity style fighters, you're taking away a demographic of the market. And that's what's really important when you start a new state, is that you make sure, like I said, that it's saturated with enough local fighters to help them sell the tickets and put new eyes on the product. So the next time, if we ever do come through to Omaha, and let's just say there's not as much Omaha talent, people will still turn up in droves because they remember what a good time they had the first time.
Absolutely, and I guarantee you that there are a huge number of new BKFC fans in Nebraska now. I guarantee it, after having watched that event. So, all right. So the next fight on the card, this one, I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on it, but I'm talking about Eric Murray defeating Robert Guzman via TKO from a knee injury, 1 minute 52 seconds into round number 2. So I'll tell you what I think, and then I would like to hear your thoughts as well. So that one, Robert Guzman, I don't think was going to win that fight. He was definitely losing the fight, but he got thrown around a little bit, and the fight ended because of a knee injury from getting thrown down, essentially. Personally, again, I never like to be too critical of the referees, but I think, just from a fan's perspective, I would have liked to have seen that one called as a no contest. But it probably was going to end in favor of Eric Murray anyway. But from a knee injury, can't continue because he got thrown down. I didn't really agree with that call. What are your thoughts?
I believe in the TKO on that because it was an unfortunate accidental injury. I do believe his knee was dislocated. And I know, we call him Bomb First because, that's Robert's nickname. I was just enthralled when I was at the fighter meeting with Sean Wheelock and Chris Leigel, and we were listening to his story, and we were listening to Robert's passion about how he wanted this journey to make his way to bare knuckle fighting championship. And, he had also been a former tryout athlete. So he tried out, and then he finally got this opportunity. He was so excited, but I think the problem with that is that he just gave up way too much height, because Eric Murray Jr., what was he, about 6'4"?
He was definitely significantly taller. Yeah,
he was taller, and he was controlling the jab. He was also controlling the pace, which I thought that Robert Guzman was going to walk him down. I didn't think it was going to be the other way around. Now, do I believe it should have been a no contest? No, because in the long run, I don't think it would made a difference on the outcome of the fight. And believe it or not, what I just said right there, I'm saving for another fight that we're going to talk about that may have a little bit of controversy behind it, but I'm still going to save it for that fight. But as far as this one, I believe the referee made the right call. It was a accidental knee injury. Doctor stopped it, TKO, doctor stoppage. I do agree with the call.
I feel like I could go either way with it. It could have been, but again, it would have been. So you know what? You may have just changed my mind on that, because it really would have been a shame to take that W away from Robert that he was going to have anyway. He was winning the fight, and matter of fact, he was dominating the fight. So I'll switch my point of view. You convinced me. You're a heck of a salesman. Good job. That doesn't happen often. But all right, so that one, I could see arguments in both directions. But at the end of the day, after hearing your point of view, I'm going to agree with you. So then we go to Cody Land defeats TJ Benson via knockout right hook to the body. Now that was one thing from this entire card that's another one of my takeaways. People are starting to really see the benefit of working the body. I mean, those were some vicious body shots, and I'm telling you right now, it does not feel good, people. Like taking some of those. I mean, to me, like I'd almost rather get punched in the face than take a liver or a kidney shot like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, right hook to the body, 129, 1 minute 29 seconds into round number 2. So what do you think? Do you know, any particular thoughts on that fight?
I think what we saw there is what it was kind of like an education to maybe future bare knuckle fighters, showing that one of the interesting facts of bare knuckle fighting is to really attack the body, is to go after the body, because a lot of old school bare knuckle fighters, and we're talking about the bare knuckle fighters in the 19th century, not necessarily the 20th and the 21st century, they would go after the body. They would go after joints. They would hit you in the elbow. They'd hit you in the forearm. You know, they'd hit you at places to where they would strategically break down your body so that you couldn't fight back effectively.
Right.
Modern day bare knuckle fighters, everybody's looking for the big knockout at the knockout button. But what they don't realize is that's not the only one. As far as knockout buttons throughout the physical anatomy of a human body, there are so many knockout buttons all over the body that most of them don't even know about, and they haven't been exploited in a fight. So anytime that you see a body knockout, and it's interesting how the breakdown of it works, because usually it's not immediate. Usually it takes a couple of seconds. There's a delayed reaction, and then the body reacts accordingly. It goes into shutdown mode. And it's interesting to see that play out in a bare knuckle fight. And I just hope that more fighters look at that as a blueprint and put that into practice. I really do.
I agree, but I think we're starting to see more and more of it, and we saw more than one, more than one fight in that way on this card. So take note, all you fighters out there. So again, that was some brutal body shots. Next fight was Sean Wilson taking out Will Shutt. It was a TKO with a vicious left hook, 1 minute 21 seconds into round number 1. So
we passed up Benson.
We did. We did. Sorry about that. Cody Land. So we'll come back to Sean and Will, but Cody Land, right hook to the body. So you know who we actually we skipped was JC DeLeon and Fantroy.
And Keelan.
Yes, that's who we skipped. So that was a TKO, right hooks, minute 36 in round number 2.
Yep.
You know, another vicious knockout. Just brutal. So, anything you want to touch on in particular about that fight?
You know, I mean, two fighters, stepping in there, we had Fantroy. I'm trying to remember where I believe Fantroy was a Nebraska kid. And JC DeLeon from Fort Worth, Texas. He's a Texas boy. He was a Texas boy.
Yep.
So interesting fight. Nothing that really kind of, knocked my socks off on that fight, even though that statistically, when I started looking at that, I was interested in it. I mean, it was a good knockout, and, hats off to both fighters. But, I mean, we didn't have a boring fight on the card at all. I don't think that there was a boring fight at all. There wasn't a boring minute on it. And you're not going to have boring minutes when every fight is a stoppage, unless that stoppage is like ridiculously controversial. The fans don't agree with it. The commentators don't agree with it. And it's just literally, if this person wins, they riot. We didn't have a situation like that. So there wasn't a bad moment on the card.
No, there really wasn't. I totally agree with that. So then you had, of course, then we'll get back to Sean and Will. That was a mean left hook. If I remember correctly, it was kind of a wild shot. Am I thinking of the right one? Okay. It was just one of those things. It was a wild left hook that just caught him right on the button, and it was just that was it. So I sometimes wonder, like in a fight like that, like what would happen if, how would the fight have turned out if that shot hadn't landed or whatever? But at the end of the day, it landed, and that's the story, So You want to talk about that one at all?
Are we talking about Benson and Land, or are we still on Fantroy?
We're talking about we are talking about Sean Wilson and Will Shutt.
Well, I'd like to go back to Benson and
Okay.
Land if I can on
Let's
that
do
one.
that. Let's do it. Yeah.
Because Benson's coming in, an MMA veteran. Cody Land, shorter guy, but stocky as hell. Stocky as hell. I mean, seriously, the guy looked like a reclining, chair. I mean, he was just so friggin' big, big but small and stout. That was a surprising one right there with Cody Land. And as a professional, I am the kind of person to owe up to when I fucked up on television. And guess what? There was a deer in headlights moment last night from yours truly on that fight. Not everybody noticed it, but as I said, I'm a professional and I'm willing to own when I have a deer in headlights moment. I actually had the wrong decision card on top. So when I was about ready to announce it, I'm looking for the time. It's not there. You see me shuffle. You see me shuffle. You even hear a fan say, "Come on!" and then I had accidentally shuffled the card to the back. So that's where you saw that pause. Mm-hmm. Some people were thinking maybe I was going for like a psychological pause. No, that was dumbassery right there on my end.
It happens.
But no, and here's the thing, it does. And a lot of people hold you up to ridiculously high standards when you're on television. When you're on television,
absolutely.
It's amazing the standards that you're held to, because when somebody watches one product, they figure every single product that's on television is going to be held at least up to that same standard, without realizing that things like this do happen, realizing that the top professionals, Michael Buffer and Bruce, they mess up all the time. But they mess up, but they're professionals like me, to the point to where when we do mess up, number one, we recover very quickly. We recover very quickly, quicker than most, instead of just standing there like a dumbass. And I had a little bit of a dumbassery moment, and in that moment, apologies to Cody Land for, pushing that out a little bit longer, but at least it ended hard. He got a nice reaction to his win and such. So, good fight, and a mistake that will not be made again. If Dave is watching, if anybody with BKFC is watching, they'll probably say, you know what? Let's go ahead and watch that back. Yeah, he did fuck up. And then I'm going to hear about it for the next two shows. But that will not happen again. I can promise you that. Mistakes are made, but lessons are learned.
Exactly. At the end of the day, hey, we're all human and everybody can mess up, but you are man enough to admit it. So that's good on you. That's good on you. But listen, especially when you're live, I mean, it's bound to happen at some point, it's you're going to mess up, and that's part of the game. So not everyone would admit it, but you did, sir. So then, all right. So then we're going to Jason High, Rocky Long.
No. Sean Wilson and Will Shutt.
Oh shoot, I'm getting so off here. See, listen, I messed that up. I'm willing to admit it. All right, Sean Wilson, Will Shutt, left hook. That's the one that I was talking about. Sean
Wilson is going to be a badass in bare knuckle, man. I'm seeing things to come for Sean Wilson. I think that he's got potential. I mean, the combined combat sports record between the two of them was amazing. I mean, Will Shutt was somewhere around, I think, 54 fights. Sean Wilson is like close to 70. I mean, that's almost 100.
Yeah.
That's almost 130 collective fights just between two people. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's like two of them equals one Shannon Rich.
Yeah, I mean, like seriously, like that. When I remember hearing that announcement of 50 some odd fights, professional fights, and 70 professional fights. I'm like, good God, these guys are a couple of warriors. Like, I can't even imagine. I mean, that's such a a lot of guys don't even never will achieve even having close to 50 fights in their professional career.
That's pro fights. That's pro fights. That's
right.
That's baptism under fire coming into bare knuckle. But Sean, he had the game plan from moment one. He knew it's all about applying the pressure. It's all about putting your foot on the gas And, he really came out with hard hits, got some good flurries in there. I was impressed with Sean. I want to see him again. I think that he impressed a lot of people within the decision-making tree of BKFC. I think so.
I would imagine so. I mean, it was another vicious TKO left hook, and it ended quickly. So it was a good show. All right.
The interesting thing is that before we go on, and I think that this is an interesting fun fact. Maybe it's something that our fight fans didn't notice. I mean, I certainly noticed because I was in bewilderment. When we finished, and it was just right before 10:30, it was actually one of our faster moving pace shows. It was awesome. I love it when our shows are fast paced because we get in, we give the fight fans what we want, and we get done with the night with enough time to go party and have a good time, celebrate our hard work. But the nice thing about it is that I happened to look at the mat when they were tearing it down. I realized this is by far the cleanest the mat has ever been. Any bare knuckle fighting event that we've ever done. I couldn't believe it. There was hardly a drop of blood on it. I mean, most of the time, by the time we get to fight 9, 10, or so on in a bare knuckle fight card, it starts resembling a crime scene.
Yeah.
Because of all the blood that's shed. That was the cleanest our mat with and we had vicious highlight reel knockouts throughout the whole night. And yet, as brutal as it was, which once again kind of, switches your thinking about brutality to when you see these vicious knockouts, but not excessive bloodshed.
Yeah, well, and I think that goes back to the fact that the fights did end so quickly, and there weren't these 5-round wars where these guys were just beating on each other, for 5 straight rounds. Those are some of the bloodiest fights you see in this sport.
Well, there also wasn't any female fights, and they're the ones that seem to end up the bloodiest fight.
Statistically, you're right.
Yeah. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's definitely true. Okay, so next,
Taylor Starring, and Teresa Segala talking about setting the precedent for bloody female brawls.
Yeah, one of the bloodiest fights I've ever witnessed in my life.
Favorite fights ever,
Jason Knight and Artem Lobov, that one was pretty wild. But those two girls, they really put on a war, and that one probably was the bloodiest fight I've seen overall.
There's a couple of them. There's a couple of them there. You can't take away from Julian Lane and Jake Bostwick.
Oh, absolutely. That was a good one too. And of course, you've got
Bostwick. Jake would just not stop bleeding.
Yeah. Well, and then of course Joey Beltran and Tony Lopez was another one.
Oh man! But you know what? The interesting thing about that one is that really didn't get bloody until the 4th round. The 4th and 5th round were just these enormous bloodbaths. I mean, they were doing great between rounds 1 through 3, but 4 and 5, they just threw caution. They just threw caution to the wind. Big shots started connecting, and let's talk about Tony Lopez for a second. I mean, even at BKFC 20, my God, this is one tree you cannot cut down. You just can't. Alan Belcher gave him a solid one, gave him a solid fight and such, but Jesus. Oh, you're right. You're right, Tony. Yuli and Diego was bleeding all over the damn place. So was Yuli. That was a very bloody affair as well. But man, Tony Lopez, man, they broke the mold when they made Tony Lopez. He is the most unique fighter I think I've ever met.
Well, and he fights a lot, and he's been fighting forever. And I mean, it's just like, guys like that are definitely a rare breed.
Is he 49?
Well, he's the kind of guy that he would only die if you told him.
Somebody's got to throw the white towel in for him.
Yeah, you'd have to tell him, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm dead." Okay.
Right. All right, go ahead and go. Okay. So, all right. Credit where credit is due to the only animal of bare knuckle, and that's Mr. Travis Thompson. Yes, Mr. Thompson, something, sir? I'm getting senile,
There are times that I find myself not being able to retain as much information as I did when I was a younger man, but you are absolutely right. You have been at the forefront of bloody brawls. And more importantly, Travis, and I say this with all love and not because you called it out, motherfucker, you have always entertained us.
Oh, man.
You have never had a fight with Bare Knuckle Fighting Championship that was not entertaining in some way. You have always come out there and given it your all, because Travis has said, I'm not in this sport to be rich. I'm not really in this sport to even fight full time. He's like, he said, I have a job. I love my job. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He says, I have a job. You know, I'm always working. He's the kind of guy who doesn't like downtime. He's always got to be doing something. If he's not training, he's working. You know, he's a very busy and motivated individual. But for him, it's just all about the thrill of the fight and the ability to, you know, provoke involuntary manslaughter without going to jail.
Heck yeah. Well, listen, I'm going to agree with you. And Travis, I apologize for not recognizing you as well. But listen, Travis Thompson is a guy that never disappoints. I mean, when it comes to putting on an entertaining, violent, vicious fight rather. I mean, Travis Thompson is right up there with anybody, and that is one of the reasons why our BKFC fans love him so much. I mean, he comes to fight, and he's going to throw down, and it's going to be vicious and violent, and he is the animal for a reason.
I remember that, Travis. I remember. I believe there was one time you were putting in a fireplace, and then there was another time you were like finishing a deck. I mean, you know, you always have a project. You have a project that's literally right after a fight, no matter if both your hands are broken, no matter if your eyes are swollen shut. You always have some kind of construction project that you're working on like the day after the fight. And not too many fighters can actually say that they do that. Usually they take a day of rest after receiving an ass kicking or giving an ass kicking. So, dude, more power to you for doing that.
100%. Much respect, Travis. Thank you for watching. So then we are going to Jason High, Rocky Long. So I feel like this one, it was. I want to say that it was a good fight, but it really, I mean, Jason just dominated. I felt like Rocky never really got into a good rhythm in the fight. You know, he fought hard, but
he didn't really get it. Jason did not give him a chance to start.
No, he didn't.
And I have known Rocky forever. I have announced so many of Rocky's MMA fights back when he was living in Houston. He's now out of Pittsburgh. But I have known Rocky for the longest time. You know, he has been Houston strong. You know, he was a student of recently passed Saul Solis, who was the godfather of Houston MMA. You know, I mean, Tito Ortiz's main trainer for years and years on end. You know, Rocky, I was excited when I saw him come into bare knuckle fighting. You know, I said, you know, maybe he could do well at this. Unfortunately, he came up against a guy who did not give him an opportunity to really start on the fight.
No, and you know, if you watch the fight, you might not know that Rocky Long is actually a good fighter. You know, but it just, you know, Jason just came in and just dominated from the get-go. I mean, he was just on him. He fought a good fight, had a great game plan, came in and worked it, and you know, he made great use of his distance in a lot of cases, and you know, hats off to him. He had a great performance.
I think so. He's another one that I'm very interested to see in his bare knuckle progression. There's so many. Man, how exciting is the roster right now after seeing some of these guys fight for the first time and take to it like a fish to water, and saying to yourself, man, I can't wait to see this one person. It's not just one person, it's 2, it's 5, it's 10, and as it grows, so this growing roster, as the product itself grows, it gets that much more exciting. We sound like a broken record when we say that this is the best fight card. This is the best fight card. It's going to be a very long time until we say, it's an okay fight card because I don't see it. No, seriously, I don't see it in the immediate future. I really don't.
No, the roster is getting super, super deep, and the thing with a debut fighter in bare knuckle or in combat sports in general, but especially in bare knuckle, any of these debut fighters could be the next superstar. They could be the next dominant force in whatever division they're in. You don't know. Because the sport is so new, and you've had a number of fighters that come in with an upside down record in MMA or boxing, and come in and do extremely well in this sport, because this is a totally different game. And so that's to me is one of the exciting things about watching debut fighters, is that you don't know what to expect. Even if they do have a ton of pro fights outside of bare knuckle, they could come in and this could be their thing. They found their niche.
Well, how interesting is it that we have a dynamic of an old sport, new concept?
Exactly.
That doesn't, you don't hear those two combined that often when it comes to sports, because boxing been established, MMA now been established in mainstream. Bare knuckle, if we're talking bare knuckle fighting, that can go as far back as fighting can go, number one. But the fact that we have it on this platform, on this new platform, so old sport, new concept, very, very interesting. And I think that that's what's going to be intriguing to so many fans as they discover bare knuckle, because you can do your history and see how far the lineage of bare knuckle fighting goes back. It's pretty damn deep.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So this next fight, I think, so we're talking about Ryan Roberts defeating Jorge Gonzalez by KO with a vicious overhand right, 29 seconds into round number 2. And I think that one, as of right now, has to be in the running for knockout of the year.
It was when that was slowed down to so many frames per second. My God, just watch. This one was interesting because you saw the entire body section by section shut down. And that's always interesting to see the body shut down in the process of a knockout. But what was funny, when he landed, I said, dude, when you landed, your head kind of turned, your eyes were wide open. It's almost like he was looking at the screen up there to catch the replay of the knockout before it happened.
Yeah. That was just my goodness. And of course, you're talking about Ryan Roberts is
no, and he's fine. He's fine, dude. He was partying with us downstairs. He was no worse for the wear. His face wasn't messed up in any way. A lot of guys didn't have the fights weren't long enough to really have anybody have a lot of damage. So it's amazing. Yet again, what I said earlier on how clean the mat was. Well, I was amazed at how little our guys were scarred up this time, but that's because that there were no wars. It was all first round, second round finishes. So
yep.
Nobody was really worse for the wear as far as superficially. Right.
And Ryan Roberts is another guy that, man, he's built like a stinking brick house.
He's a tank. He's a fucking tank. He's like the way that his body style is kind of reminding me of Dakota Cochran.
Yeah, just that compact, just pure muscle. And obviously, listen, he's gonna be a force to reckon with. It could potentially be, man. I tell you what, he throws a mean overhand right,
and it didn't. And if you watch the hit, his power was so it didn't completely connect. You saw as that overhand right. There was a little ricochet off of the top of the knuckle, but the force was enough there that what he did get caught with took him off his feet.
Absolutely. So he just folded.
Just imagine if that had been flush.
Yeah. Well,
if that had been flush, it could have been a hell of a lot worse. So that just shows the amazing power. And Ryan's another one who is a combat sports veteran. Over 30, I think he had a combined combat sports record of over 30 fights over so many combat sports. And now here he is at bare knuckle. And man, He had a killer instinct. He had a killer look on him. I mean, this guy, I bet Dave just sees absolute unlimited potential in someone like Ryan Roberts.
100%, 100%. I can't wait to see him fight again. I can't wait to see it. A lot of these guys on this card.
I'm a fan.
I am too.
I mean, I love Jorge. Jorge's my boy. I love Jorge. He's a nice guy. He's vicious in the ring, but he just got caught with a bad shot. I mean, the fight could have gone either way if that shot may not have been connected, because I've definitely seen Jorge in later rounds actually, start utilizing that gas tank. So that could have happened, but Ryan is just a special kind of fighter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's powerful. I'll tell you that much.
Sure
okay. So this next one, this is the one that you were talking about earlier. We wanted to come back to it. And I've had a few fighters reach out to me and ask me my opinion, and give me their opinion. And I think that everyone that I've talked to, okay, we're talking about Houston Alexander, Wes Combs. And anybody that watched knows what happened. Houston knocked out Wes and then came and hit him really hard again after Wes was on the ground already unconscious. So there have been people arguing, this has been a thing that people have talked about, that should that have been a DQ?
Absolutely
I
not.
see. Yeah,
Absolutely not. Nope.
I see arguments in both directions, but
no. In the end, it's kind of hard to argue, and for the simple reason, it's easy to see why so many people would want a DQ after the debacle that happened, unfortunately, with our good friend Melvin Gillard. I mean, I understand that. It was unfortunate what happened there, but it was under different circumstances. Now that, that fight, I guess, they've broken it down, they've dissected it a little bit more. And now that they've seen, hey, maybe it didn't necessarily call for a DQ. Maybe it could have been take away 1 point, take away 2 points, and let the fight continue. Fine. I mean, I can understand that. I mean, but was it a desired situation? No, it wasn't. Unfortunately, it wasn't. But in this case, the way that I'm looking at a disqualification on a downed opponent is if that downed opponent is still able to defend him or herself during the fight. That was not the case here. Wes Combs was knocked out. It was an unfortunate follow-up what happened with Houston with the second fight, but it would not have changed the outcome of the fight. Now, if Wes Combs had dropped down to a knee, if Wes Combs had been knocked down and he was still, conscious, cognitive, and everything like that, we're talking a completely different structure. Then, yes, it absolutely probably would have warranted a disqualification. But Kerry Hatley, my very, very good friend, was refereeing that, and he did no wrong on that. That was definitely the right call. And just to show you what a great referee that Kerry is, he went over and consulted with the deputy commissioner that was on there before we went to the decision. He didn't just take it upon himself to make the decision, match them up, and say this is how it is. He went over to the commissioner. I saw them very, very aggressively talk about the situation, and the commissioner was in agreement with the referee because Wes was not able to defend himself. I mean, it was an ugly knockout. It looked like after the decision, right before the decision was made, that maybe we were going to see another situation of somebody being, carted out of the ring. Thank goodness that did not happen.
Oh, man.
Wes, came about his facilities again, got up. He seemed just fine. I mean, he was a little rocked, but considering so, I mean, that was one hell of a knockout. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But because for the simple fact, it would not have changed the outcome. It did not warrant a disqualification.
Yeah, and one of the takeaways that I had from and one of the other questions I've been asked was like, was there malicious intent there? And I'm like, no. And everybody saw that Houston Alexander felt absolutely horrible about it.
Well, they're buds. They're friends. They're friends. They're friends. They're that you saw it. I mean, if he had not shown any kind of remorse and everything, I mean, maybe it could have been construed differently. But that's not what happened. That's not what we saw. He was very remorseful about that last shot. He didn't like seeing his friend on oxygen. He didn't
Yep.
see the bodyboard coming into the ring and such. I mean, he felt, genuine remorse over that. So I just don't think it warranted a disqualification. It was a knockout. It was a knockout.
Yeah.
Like I said, if Wes was leaning on the ropes, if Wes was, trying to get back to his feet and he had come with that shot, then yes, he was in a position to have defended himself. It would have been a down shot, and that would have absolutely warranted a disqualification. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, at the end of the day, I was so relieved to see Wes get up and, and sit down and of course he was rocked still, but I mean, it was a scary moment there, a scary couple of minutes when we were all wondering. So I'm just happy that he's okay.
And we never want to see that. I mean,
Never.
we love the brutality of the sport. However, the last thing that we want to see is a fighter not being able to walk out on their own 2 feet.
Absolutely.
We never want to see them carried out. And that's why in those situations, our production is so great that they don't focus in on the downed opponent, whether he needs oxygen, whether he's needing, help from the EMTs, our cut man team. We're not focusing on that because we don't need to focus on that. We need to focus on the fight. They go ahead and they go back and they talk about the replay. They're true professionals about that because we don't need to show anything like that because it doesn't do any good to anyone until we see that person stand up.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad that he did. So, all right. Next fight. Sam Shoemaker, Josh Burns. Ended really quickly. I would have liked to see that fight not end that way. I'm not saying for the fact that that Sam is my client and friend. I just think that it would have and should have been an all-out brutal war. And so just from my perspective, I'm sitting ringside and obviously you watch the replay. So Josh, in that fight, Sam is going backwards. Josh is coming forward. Josh throws out a left hook. To me, it didn't look like it was a super powerful shot that hit Sam. And so I was like, what happened? But if you were sitting there where I was sitting, you heard when Sam goes down, boom, he hit his head, the back of his head on the way down.
I know.
And that's what really shook him. He wasn't hurt by the punch. And I'm not taking anything away from Josh. I have congratulated Josh. I'm a good sportsman. And listen, congratulations on the victory. I just wish that it didn't happen that way. If it would have been a clean, nasty shot that knocked Sam out from the force of the punch, that's one thing. But Sam was and I've spoken to Sam since then, and he said, "I'm not hurt, other than the back of my head where I hit that steel."
Yeah, that rope. Those are unforgiving ropes. Unfortunately, that. Now, Matt, I know where you're going with on this. However, I do have to say that there was a knockout factor to this, and the reason why I do say that there was a knockout factor is because of the lean of the way that Sam went down. Sam went down in a knocked out fashion. When you see someone kind of stiff, he was a little stiff in that. So there had to have been some force behind there. I mean, it wasn't just a fall. You don't just fall like.
Oh no, it was a knockdown. It was a knockdown,
and part of him did go limp. Part of him did go limp because he leaned straight back into that rope. So there was some power there. Was it unfortunate to see it go down the way it did so quickly? Absolutely. I would have loved to have seen more from those guys. But as far as their game plan, Sam was in there probably at two steps. Josh was about 2 steps ahead. And that's all it was. He was just, and that's all it takes. And that's what's so interesting about bare knuckle is that all you have to do is just maybe be 1 or 2 steps ahead. And that's sufficient enough to because it's all about creating this crazy momentum that you don't normally have when you're restricted with gloves. I mean, even 4 ounces. I mean, you're still got heavy tape. I mean, and when you're doing the boxing gloves, I mean, that's even worse. I mean, you're not really thinking about it that much, but
Right.
when you're unencumbered by gloves, your momentum moves in a completely different fashion. So all it takes is 1 or 2 steps ahead, and then you find yourself in a knockout position over your opponent. In other sports, you may not find yourself in that position just being that many steps ahead.
Right, right. And again, I'm not arguing that it was a knockdown. It certainly was a knockdown. I just wish we could have seen what would have happened if he hadn't hit his head, if he would have gotten up to recover and continue to fight. I think it played a big factor.
It absolutely did. It absolutely did.
But again, not taking anything away from Josh.
Never. I was proud of him. I was proud of him. I would have been. I'm honestly, either one of these guys, I am a huge fan of Sam. I am a huge fan of Josh. I am proud whether somebody wins or somebody loses. And I know Sam, he's had his ups and downs. He's had his trials. He's had his tribulations and such. But he's still the kind of fighter that even after something like this, there's no fucking way that you can count him out in any way, shape, or form. No.
He's still, in my opinion, Sam Shoemaker and Josh Burns both are 2 of the most dangerous heavyweights in the world when it comes to bare knuckle, period. And you can never count either one of those guys out.
You can't take out Dylan Kleckler from that. Dylan Kleckler.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He's becoming quite the dangerous heavyweight.
Dylan Kleckler is a problem in the heavyweight division. I'm telling you right now, and everybody knows it.
Big problem.
Yeah, so he's a beast of a man, and he's an incredible athlete, and has been successful in his entire career. He lost 1 fight in MMA, and it was like a weird. I don't know. Have you ever seen the video of his loss in MMA?
Yes.
It was like he was chasing the guy, and the guy comes around with a spinning back fist or something and just caught him. It was like one of these freak, almost like call it a lucky shot, call it whatever, but the guy wasn't even looking, and that's his only loss. So I think that in bare knuckle, he's going to be he already is.
And that was just crazy weird timing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly like the guy was dominating him. Just like you said, he was almost kind of running away.
Yeah. And so, but then, he already is, but he's going to continue to be a force to be reckoned with as far as Dylan Kleckler is concerned. I mean, of course, if we're talking heavyweights, you got to talk about the upcoming heavyweight title fight that was just announced on Friday night. Can't wait to see it.
Wow.
It's going to be awesome.
Wow. And a lot of people don't realize it's a rematch too.
Yep.
It is a rematch. I mean, as Joey was trying to ascend up the heavyweight tournament at the time, he ran into AJ Adams, and AJ was a problem for him. AJ advanced and Joey did not. Now we find ourselves, Joey being the most dominant heavyweight champion we've ever had. We have had the most dominating, and Joey Beltran has done something that John L. Sullivan even himself hasn't done, and that's successfully defend the Police Gazette Heavyweight Championship. I mean, he's a bad dude, but this AJ, when he came back, this is a reinvented AJ.
Yes,
this is a completely reinvented man. I mean, from what we saw, he was dangerous enough to begin with in the heavyweight tournament, but I don't know who the hell this guy is.
Yeah, I mean, what impressed me about his last performance is that, coming into that his last fight, I thought that he didn't have enough power to compete with, to really dominate some of these fights, and he proved everybody that thought that, including myself, wrong. I mean, he threw with a lot of power, and shocked me, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. And it's going to be a great fight. I think that is a fantastic main event for Seneca. Now that's a great way to introduce New York to bare knuckle with 2 heavyweights that never cease to entertain. Never.
I'm surprised that New York has opened up before many of the other states.
Well, unfortunately, the Athletic Commission hasn't opened up yet. It's not the athletic commission. This is the tribal commission over at the Senate.
Oh, okay.
So the tribal commission is giving us our shot. New York, I'm pretty sure that, but you know what's going to happen is that you better believe that the New York Athletic Commission is going to be watching, and that they have been watching, and they're going to see that this is worth getting behind. It's worth bringing it to New York. And I know for a fact that one day I will be saying my triple hellos in the Hulu Theater in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's going to happen. It's inevitable. We just have to get the athletic commission on our side and make them realize that this is money in the bank, number one. Number two, it's no more a risk taking on bare knuckle than boxing or MMA.
Absolutely. All right. Last fight of the night, BKFC 21, the main event, Dakota Cochran versus Mike Richman. Oh, man.
Mike Richman is a badass motherfucker.
Oh, my God.
But then again, I can't take anything, and I mean a single thing, away from Dakota Cochran. Those body shots that Richman was absolutely unloading on Dakota Cochran. Any other human being, in my opinion, probably would have not gotten up.
No. And what sealed the deal, I mean, those body shots.
Tough. Dakota.
Yes.
I always knew he was tough, but I had not seen him under fire like this before. And he still persevered through. He did. He took those body shots. You know, he was having trouble breathing, and then really he got his nose, looked like he got his nose busted, and you're already having trouble breathing after getting your ribs pounded on like that, and then your nose, getting your nose busted the way it was leaking like that. How can you breathe? So it was a dang impressive performance by Mike Richman. That guy is somebody that everyone needs to be very concerned about. I mean, Lord, crazy. They fought at middleweight. They fought at 175. I mean, Mike could easily take it up to light heavyweight at 185 with his frame. But I'm interested to see. I think he would be a fantastic challenger eventually at 175. I figure maybe two more fights. He's ready for title contention.
100%. Well, he's impressed me with his performances every time, and wow. So
he's a badass motherfucker. That's all I can say. I mean, he'd say the same thing. In fact, actually, he did say the same thing about himself. So as far as describing Mike Richman, I think I'll take the words out of his own mouth and just say he's a badass motherfucker.
That he is. You can't deny it.
He's definitely on point with the mustache game.
A lot of them were
good. There was a lot of handlebars.
There were quite a few handlebars in there, man. I'm gonna tell you, they were.
I love it. It brings it back that old school flavor.
Yeah. The gentleman look that John L. Sullivan tried to bring back, even though John had thin mustaches, but he dabbled in between the thin mustache and kind of the bushy mustache and everything like that. And I still say the man who has the panache of the mustache in bare knuckle fighting, it starts and finishes with Tom Shoaf.
Absolutely.
100%. He's got the best mustache in the game right now.
Nicest guy. He is just, you want to talk about a fighter who gets more dangerous with every fight? With every fight. Jeez.
Yes, he does. Hey, I always, and that's another guy, just like Travis Thompson, just another really tough guy that never fails to entertain and put on a great show. I mean, he took that's another guy that took a brutal beating and just kept coming, against Joe Elmore. I mean, he doesn't stop,
And he beat the shit out of Joe Elmore.
Yeah, he did.
Joe Elmore had
a bloody battle.
Joe Elmore had not been beaten down like that and bare knuckle up to that point. So that was an awakening on him. However, unfortunately, the knockdowns ended up, really costing him the fight. And every single time that he was knocked down, he was pissed. Oh, he was pissed. He would smash the ring. I
He would
totally.
just seem shaking his head at himself.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, you know what? I think that Tom has learned from that fight, and he's realized where he belongs in the world of bare knuckle fighting, and he is going to be a force at 155.
I agree. I think both of those guys, Joe Elmore and Tom Schoaf, are two of my favorite guys to watch. Really.
If there's anybody, in my opinion, as of right now, at 155 pounds, that can pose a real threat to Luis Palomino, it's Tom Schoaf.
Okay. Well,
that would be
you heard it. I'd love to see it. Love to see it. Well, do you have any words of wisdom to leave us with tonight, Jeff?
Every word that I say has wisdom to it. God, I love it how you set that up. Like everything that I've been saying is bullshit, and now here comes your wisdom. Now that you're kicking me off the broadcast. Oh, okay.
All of your words have had wisdom. And listen, your opinion. I mean, I have my opinions, but you were actually able to change my opinion, which doesn't happen typically, in the one instance. So, man, it's always good talking to you, Jeff.
Well,
I've had nothing.
The reason why that is, and I'll explain the reason why that is. The reason why that is because it's an interesting seat that I have, both, in the ring, which is the best seat in the house when I get the opportunity to pump up the fighters, pump up the crowd, add the sizzle to the edges of bare knuckle fighting championship. And then I've got the best seat of the house on the outside, where I have, watching on TV and watching it in person is night and day. It's absolute night and day. So with that interesting dual perspective that I have when I'm working, I have a completely, maybe even a different perspective to give than the casual observer. So I think that's why a lot of people may see it my way. I'm not out to necessarily change your mind. I'm out to tell you my perspective and quite possibly educate you if I feel that your perspective may be missing something. Now, I'm not saying that your perspective was. I'm just telling you what I saw. If you happen to take that into account and change your mind, that's wonderful, but that's not what I'm out to do. I would rather educate than spend unnecessary energy trying to change people's mind about the sport, because people are going to make up their mind about how they feel about bare knuckle, whether they love it or whether they hate it and such. Sometimes it takes peer pressure from their friends to bring them into the fold, but even if that does happen, they're truly not going to be. Oh, I did not, Howie. Actually, I take that back. If I am going to order Scott Burt paper dolls, it's only to wipe my ass with. That's the only way. Blow my nose, wipe my ass. That's the only reason why I would ever need the fact that those things exist to begin with makes me believe that Satan exists.
Oh my gosh! Oh Lord, I love the rivalry you guys have, and Scott.
It's not a rivalry. I win, he loses.
Okay. Well, there you have it. And Scott, if you want to come on and refute that at some point, you're more than welcome to.
Bring it on, bitch.
We can have both of you guys on here.
Bring it on. I will shut him down. Have you ever seen those demolition crews blow up the buildings in Las Vegas? That's what it's going to look like. I'm pushing the hammer down.
There you go. Well, hey guys, this has been a lot of fun. I'd love to do it again. Jeff, you're always more than welcome to come on anytime. Love having you, man. And so we're Bare Knuckles Most Wanted, and you just heard the BKFC 21 recap with Bare Knuckles Most Wanted crew. That's me and Matt, and of course, Mr. Live Worldwide, Jeff Houston. Thank you for coming on, Jeff. Appreciate you, man.
Every day and any day, brother.
All right.
See you later, guys.
All right.
What we do here is go back.